All right. We're going to start right at the top of the hour now, folks, so that we can get through all of this content. We have a ton of great stuff to get through today, and then we're going to do some really fun, interactive, live optimization in the second half of this. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jeff Giddens. Just wanted to give you a few quick things to note here. Number one, we will make a video recording as well as links to all of the case studies that you see and a copy of the slides after the meeting. We'll make that available to you. We'll send it out via email, so check your inbox for that. It takes a little while for the video to process, and then we'll send it out. Two, we want your questions. As we go through this is going to be interactive. And so as we go through this presentation, there will be a poll, and then we'll also, we'd love to hear your ideas for optimization. Here's how you ask a question. Up in the top left-hand corner of your screen, you see that Ask a Question box. You can click that, and it'll bring down a little comment box, and you can type your comment or response in there, and make sure you hit send. Hitting enter does not send it, so you have to hit that blue send button. So we will, like I said, later on when we do the live optimization, we want to get your feedback on these landing pages as we go through them. So we want to hear from you. Use that box, and we'll answer the questions as they come through. Okay, without any further ado, I'm going to pitch it over to Tim Kachuriak, who is going to walk us through the first part of this landing page optimization broadcast. Tim?
Jeff, thank you very much, and everybody, thank you for taking time to dial into today's broadcast. As Jeff mentioned, we have a tremendous amount of ground to cover today and not a lot of time to do it, so I don't want to waste much time. But I do want to let you know that you guys are part of a little bit of an experiment that we're doing today. This is our first time doing something like this virtual live optimization, and so I thank you for joining us and being part of that. And we certainly hope that everything works out and that you find this to be a useful exercise. And if so, we'd love to hear from you and get your feedback so that we can know how to continue to optimize our process and make it better and better each time. So I want to start things off. As I mentioned, today is going to be a very interactive session. I do have a little bit of material I'd like to cover to orient our thinking before we get into live op. But I want to ask you a single question to get started, and that's this. How do you know when a landing page is optimized? And so we're going to start the interactivity right away, and we're going to do a little bit of a test of an experiment here. So I have 3 versions of the exact same landing page on the screen before you, version A, version B, and version C. And I'd like you to look at each of these 3 versions of the landing page, and I'd like you to tell me which one is optimized, meaning which one is going to produce the best conversion rate or response rate. Is it version A, version B, or version C? What I'd like you to do is use the little question box that we just referenced, that Jeff mentioned, and submit your vote for version A, B, or C. And please take a minute to look at these and do it now. And Jeff, maybe as the responses are coming in, you can kind of tally those and give me a sense of who's voting for A, B, or C. So what do the responses look like so far?
It looks like we're pretty heavy on the C's, Tim. We've got a couple B's, but I would say it's largely split between C and B, with most people voting for C.
Okay, excellent. So you can continue to vote. But as you think about what was the criterion you've used as you looked at each of these landing pages to determine whether or not it was optimized? Is it the amount of white space? Was it the the presence of the value proposition or of the call to action on the landing page? Was it the visual appeal of the landing page? So these are all kind of questions that I want you to think about as we go through this. So what we did is we performed a 3-phase experiment where we tested each of these versions head-to-head against each other in an A-B split test. So the first test, the actual original control version of the landing page, is the version you see on the right here, which actually it sounds like we got the most votes for that. That was version C. We then tested that versus version B, which is slightly different. And this was early on in our optimization experiments with this organization that said, hey, we want you to optimize the page, but just don't change anything. And so we said, well, that's kind of hard to do. But we made small changes, manageable changes, but to the right areas. And what we found is that version B produced a 121% increase in donations. Then we continued to iterate on this 2-column layout. We eventually got to a version of the page like you see on the left-hand side of your screen, this 2-column layout. And we went ahead and tested that versus a radical redesign of the page. And this radical redesign really threw a lot of kind of our best practice logic out the window. It's a single column page. It scrolls forever. It's long form copy, and we did the unthinkable. We buried the donation experience about 3 or 4 good pulls on the mouse wheel down. So we buried it at the end of the experience, below the fold, if you will. Now, it took a little bit of kind of convincing to get our research partner to test this. But when we did test it, what we discovered is that the version on the right produced a 74% increase in conversion. And so often when we embark upon these optimization experiments, we find that it's rather unintuitive. It's not this version of the landing page, but this. It produced a 302% increase in donations. Not this, the version you see on the left-hand side of your screen, but this. 258% increase in donations. Not this version of this giving form, but this. A 46.3% increase in donations. So the first key principle that I just wanted to wrestle with today as we go through this experiment is that testing trumps marketing intuition. If we continue to rely upon our guts or just kind of our own past experiences, we'll often miss the opportunity to find the gold that exists when we have the ability to test these things in real life. So when it comes to testing, there's often 3 questions that we begin to wrestle with. The first one is what to test. The second one is where to test, and the final one is how to test. And so this is kind of really the beginning of key principle 2, which is when it comes to testing, best practices are often a good starting point, but they can never be the final destination. What we need to do is we need to test within a rigorous scientific methodology. So about 6 years ago, I embarked upon a journey. And I want to just kind of take you a little bit with me on this journey, this quest. I was trying to figure out who is doing some of the most pioneering work in the area of optimization science in the nonprofit space. And what I discovered is I couldn't really find a good answer to that question. So my quest actually led me out of the nonprofit space and into the for-profit space. I got connected with this group called MEC Labs. And actually, it's kind of interesting. I'm actually broadcasting live from MEC Labs offices, their headquarters here in Jacksonville, Florida. Jeff's in Dallas, so we're kind of doing a little bit of experiment of doing this kind of remotely. But when we first met these guys, we discovered that they are the largest optimization institution in the world. They work with some of the largest corporations on the planet, and they're helping these organizations to optimize their online sales funnel. I got really interested, and I said, man, that's pretty interesting. And through the course of their research, they have tested over 10,000 different conversion pathways. They've tested over 1 billion emails. They've recorded and analyzed over 5 million phone calls, all trying to answer one single question, which is this: why do people say yes? What inspires people to complete different actions that exist on the website? And through the course of their research, they've tested all of these different kind of conversion pathways, and they've been able to kind of codify the exact variables that exist in marketing that leads people to say yes. And so today I want to just introduce this concept of this conversion sequence, this conversion heuristic, which is one of the tools that have come out of the MEC Labs research that we have taken and adapted and adopted in the nonprofit space, and we have found it to be an absolutely incredibly valuable resource. So we're going to break this apart a little bit, but what this conversion sequence helps us to do is focus our attention on the right variables, the proper variables, the best variables that exist in our marketing that answers those first 2 questions, which is what to test and where to test. And so based on the research, the number 1 factor that they have determined that affects conversion is the motivation of the visitor. What is the person coming to the website for in the first place? Well, that's often the thing that we have the least amount of control over. So the next thing that they have found from their research that actually affects conversion is the force of the value proposition. We're going to spend some time today talking about the value proposition. And then they've also discovered that there's other variables that affect conversion. There's incentives, which are appealing elements that we can introduce at the moment that a person is taking action that actually tips the value scale in our favor and moves more people to say yes. But there's also these inhibitors, things like friction and anxiety that either slow people down or stop them dead in their tracks. So packed into this formula are both value factors and cost factors. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to consistently increase the value factors while we mitigate or reduce the cost factors at the same time. So we're going to get started, and today we're going to focus on two elements of the conversion sequence, the value proposition and friction. So let's start with the first one, which is decreasing friction, which should be one of the primary objectives that you employ in your landing page optimization strategy. So there's a couple of key principles we need to review. First of all, by the time your visitor has reached your landing page, every aspect of friction has been exasperated. The process of moving from the channel to the landing page has engaged friction. I mean, people have had to go from perhaps an email, to your website to a landing page, and so now your visitor is sensitized. They can determine, and they can, just completely abandon the process at any point. They can terminate the opportunity with a single click. So it's imperative that the landing page orient the visitor immediately upon arriving by answering three essential questions, which is, where am I? What can I do here? And how could I do it? And these three questions kind of make sense in the context of this visitor experience timeline. In the first second that somebody arrives on their page, we have to answer the question, where am I? And what can I do here? And then the rest of the page needs to engage that user in a mental conversation that answers this primary value proposition question, which is, why should I do it? And that moves people to the call to action, and that's when the value exchange actually takes place. So I want to talk a little bit about friction and how it's defined. We define it as anything that causes psychological resistance to a given element in the online donation process, and that may not make sense to you, but I think probably the best way to understand friction is to kind of give you an example, to allow you to experience friction through the eyes of the donor. So we're going to go ahead and walk through this example. This is several years old, but this is from a very large nonprofit organization. And the purpose of this microsite is to raise funds. It's a donation microsite. So the first question is, if you came to this landing page with an intention of giving a gift, where would you begin? Where would you click? I mean, there's a lot of different elements of content on the page. It's very visually appealing. It's a beautiful website. And, but there's a lot of conflicting calls to action here, but it shouldn't take us long, maybe a couple seconds to realize that I can click on this little donate button, and that's going to be where I need to click to give a gift. But when you click on that, then it takes you to this page. And now there's this moment of kind of, a little bit of confusion sets in. So I don't know about you, but my eye is primarily drawn to the main area of content. The first link I encounter is where your donations go, which is helpful, but that's not what I want to do. I want to donate. And then I see a button that says search for a student or group, and I'm like, what does that mean? Looking for your page, click here. To create a fundraising page, click here. To search for a page, click here. Then there's some buttons, sign up now. There's a call to action, ask your question, 1-800-7-FAMINE. Okay, 1-800-7-FAMINE, how do I donate? Or get more info, perhaps on how to donate, or visit us on Facebook. Well, down here in the bottom left-hand corner is another little text link that says, discover more ways to help, which is in fact where you need to click in order to get to the next step of the donation process. So this initial step, once somebody has clicked on that donate button in the upper right-hand corner, they're sending people to a page that introduces a lot of confusion, friction into the process. Let's say we make it that we click on discover more ways to help, then it takes me to another page, and now I see a button that aligns with my intention. It says donate now. I click on that. And then it takes me to a completely different website. I have this moment of reorientation, like, where am I at? What am I trying to do? How do I do it? I say, oh, yeah, $30. I hit donate now. Then it does something kind of strange. It puts it in a shopping cart, which I think is weird because I don't want to buy a child. I just want to sponsor one. But, I say, okay, whatever. And I hit the checkout button. Then it's like, now you need to create an account. So I'm like, oh, and I fill out some information. I hit continue. I fill out more information. I hit continue. I fill out more information. I hit continue, more information, continue. And I click 7, 8, 9, 10 times. And finally, I can submit my donation. And this is the experience that the donor takes away from the process. Friction in donors they're not friends. And donors don't like friction. So what we need to do is we need to give you different ways of identifying the different types of friction that exist in the online giving process. And then we'll use these different types of friction to try to optimize each other's pages in the second part of today's broadcast. So friction, there's two different types of friction that we'll talk about. There's length friction and there's difficulty friction, and we'll go ahead and walk through some different examples of these just to kind of give you a flavor of what we're talking about here. The first one is field number friction. So looks like I'm having some connection problems here. Is everyone still on the connection? Jeff, can you see me okay?
We can.
Okay, broadcast is coming through. Great. So this first one is field number friction. The actual number of fields that you have in your giving form can actually introduce friction. Every single additional piece of data you ask for is introducing friction into the process. So field number is one type of friction. Another type is the field layout. How you actually orient those fields in your giving form can actually contribute to friction in the giving process. It adds to this mental cost component to the giving experience. Decision friction. Many of you may have different gift designations that you offer to donors so that they can kind of customize their gift and direct it to different programs, different projects, or different fund codes. Well, one of the challenges with this is that it's a very much an organizational-centric thing, not necessarily a donor-centric thing, and it introduces unanticipated questions that the donor must answer in order to complete their donation. So that can contribute to friction. Confusion friction, we talked about this in this past example here. Using insider baseball or organizational-centric language, introducing multiple conflicting calls to action, all of this contributes to confusing the donor and making them not really sure what they need to do to complete their giving process. Error friction is another area that we'd like to look at. Having cryptic error messages or having to re-enter information or having these error messages that don't necessarily highlight the exact area where you need to fix in order to complete the donation can contribute. Registration friction, making people have to create an account before they give a gift can actually contribute to friction. Now, there's often an argument that's made that, okay, the first time somebody gives a gift, maybe it's more friction, but then next time they come, they can just simply log in, and it remembers all their information, and it's easier to complete the transaction after that first gift. But the problem is that all of us have probably about a dozen or more different passwords. And so, this little forgot your password tends to be the place we click instead of, inserting our username and password. And we know that when you click that, sometimes the email is generated right away. Sometimes it takes, several minutes or even hours or days for that email to be generated. And I don't want my potential donor waiting around in their inbox where they can be pelted with all different kinds of other messages of things that they can do that will distract them from the primary initiative of what I want them to do, which is complete my donation. So this is where we need to think about, is it appropriate to have a login? Something that's becoming more and more of an issue is this idea of device friction. Optimizing for the small screen. When donors have to pinch and zoom in order to be able to do all these finger moves in order to interact with their giving form, that creates friction in the donation process. So let's look at a couple of different experiments here of how we can eradicate friction, or at least reduce it in the process. So this comes from our research library, experiment 1007. And this is a pretty interesting experiment we did with one of our research partners, CaringBridge. And many of you may be familiar with CaringBridge, but wonderful website. They have about 500,000 people used every day. So it's tons of traffic, which is kind of a researcher's dream because we can test so many different things. And one of the things that we've discovered is that their giving form, and by the way, they're a nonprofit. Many people don't know that they need to raise funds in order to support the work they do of providing this free service to people that are healing, to be able to create this secure blog in place for sharing their healing journey. So on their giving form, out of the box, they have a form that has all of the fields vertically aligned. So first name, last name, city, state, zip, and payment information. So they're all kind of vertically aligned. And so all of these things, unfortunately, are required in order to complete the donation. And so in this experiment, we said, well, how can we actually change the orientation of the fields to make the perception alive that there's actually less friction in the process? So you can see in the treatment here, we grouped different fields together. We have first name next to last name, we have city, state, zip all in one line. We have email and phone number on the same line. We group the payment information together. So when you look at them side by side, the perception is that the treatment actually has less work that the donor needs to do in order to complete their donation. So we set up an A/B split test. Version A got the control, the long form giving form with vertically aligned fields. The treatment got this more condensed form, same number of fields in both the control and the treatment. In the experiment, the treatment produced a 39.4% increase in conversion rate. And this highlights a very, very critical principle that we need to grasp. Friction doesn't exist on the page. Friction lives in the mind, right? We didn't change the amount of work required to complete the donation, but we've changed the perception that when at first blush, at first glance, it looks like it's less work for the donor to complete their donation. And so in many instances, we talk about this as a group, that we're not trying to optimize emails. We're not trying to optimize landing pages. What we're trying to do is optimize the thought sequences that lead more people to say yes and less people to say no. So friction doesn't live on the page, it lives in the mind. Here's another experiment, and in this particular example, this is in the context of a serial call to action. So this is after people have already kind of raised their hand, they've registered for this online course that's offered by Hillsdale College, and the next step of the process is introducing an opportunity for people to give, to underrate the costs of providing this free online course or providing the opportunity for somebody else. And so when we looked at this page, we often use the heuristic, the conversion formula, C equals 4M plus 3V plus 2I minus F minus 2A. We use that to kind of generate different observations. So as we looked at this page, we're looking for friction. And the first thing that we identified on this page is, man, we've got this big, bulky kind of header area, and it takes up a lot of space, and it doesn't really generate a lot of value. So, maybe there's something we can do to condense that to get people into the value part of our page, the copy, sooner. We noticed that there's all these social sharing icons on the top of the screen. Now, is sharing something we want people to do? Of course, absolutely. All of us want people to do that. Is that the best thing they can do on this page? Is this the proper place to introduce that call to action? We said, no. Maybe we can offload that to a different part of the experience. We said, we have all these other navigational elements that lead people out of the giving experience to other pages. Do we want them to visit other pages? Of course we do. Do we want them to do that now? No. We want them to give, right? And then we even looked at the giving form. I mean, it has an array, which is good, to give people different options of how much they can give and suggested giving amounts. But it uses these little radio buttons, which are often hard to click on, and there's a little tiny button at the very bottom of the page that says, donate now, and it's kind of out of the primary iPath. And we said, man, maybe there's some things we can do to this page to actually make it easier for people to give. So here's the treatment. We removed that big bulky header, we condensed it, and we moved people more quickly into the value proposition. We thanked them for taking the initial action and moved them into the value proposition. We got rid of the social sharing icons. We eliminated the navigation options on this page, and we replaced those little pesky radio buttons that are difficult to click with these big, bright blue buttons that are easy to click. And in our A/B split test, when we tested this new treatment versus the control, the treatment produced a 33.3% increase in donation conversion. Another example, going back to that initial example that we looked at from earlier, where we had this long form landing page, donation form at the end of the page versus this 2-column layout where we have the call to action above the fold. And what's interesting, if you look at these two pages, you might say, well, gosh, it looks like the page on the right is, that would probably have more friction because people have to read all of this information before they can get to the giving form, before they can get to the call to action. But in actuality, the version on the left has much more friction. It has different kinds of friction. But let me kind of break it down for you. First of all, there's navigation up at the top and at the bottom. There's 4 or 5 or 6 different navigational elements that provide bailout opportunities to abandon the process and go visit some other page. Do we want them to visit other pages? Yes. Is that the right thing to do now? No. So we evaluated that. The article links. There's multiple different article links throughout the page that take people out of the site, distraction from our primary goal. There's a secondary call to action that forces the donor to choose. Do I want to give a gift, or do I want to get this free PDF by giving my name and email address? Do we want to collect email addresses? Of course we do. Is this the right place to do it? Maybe not. And then there's a thought sequence is out of order. First of all, the giving form, the call to action, is on the left-hand side of the screen, and the content and the copy is on the right-hand side of the screen. So you have to go down and up and over, and it just creates this iPath problem. So in the optimized version, we actually looked at this page, and we said, how do we reduce some of this different kinds of friction on the page? And so we removed the needless navigation from the page. We eliminated the additional article links and made it laser focused on conveying the value proposition of the organization, the reasons why to give. We cut out the secondary call to action, and then we created a single straight pathway that leads from the headline and goes all the way through to completion of the donation. And so in our test, this is one of the factors that contributed to this 74% increase in conversion rate. So these are some different examples of things that we'll look at in our live ops session, but I do want to touch on perceived value. I want to talk about the value proposition briefly as well, because this is another area that we find tremendous opportunities when it comes to optimizing pages. And I know I'm running out of time, so I'm going to move quickly through this session if I haven't been moving quickly enough. So we'll just keep moving. So often when we talk about value proposition, we have to start by talking about the donor funnel, okay? And the idea is, and most of us have been trained with this direct response mindset, we put different sources of traffic in the top, and they could be banners or search or social or emails or whatever. And the idea is we want to move people from interest to involvement to investment, and we want to turn our visitors into prospective donors, our prospective donors into new donors, our new donors into passionate givers to our cause. But there's a problem with this, and I used to view the world this way, and I think most of us instinctively do. And so I met with my friends at McLabs, and I said, hey, guys, here's what my funnel looks like. And they said, well, we love the funnel, first of all. The funnel is a very powerful analogy because all of marketing should be moving people to a decision point. It should be moving people to say yes. But there's a problem in how we perceive the funnel, and it requires us to look at this working for us. And what I mean by gravity is the natural forces that exist in the marketplace. Gravity is working against us. And so in order to get a proper perspective of the funnel, you have to take the funnel and flip it upside down and realize that people are not falling in, they're falling out. And instead of, traveling down the center, what they're in fact doing is they're climbing up the sides. And each of the sides of the funnel represents a different conversion pathway. And so by way of example, my analogy of a funnel actually looks more like a donor mountain. And I'm trying to get people to the top of this mountain. At the top of the mountain is my macro yes. I want people to give a donation. But in order to get to that macro decision, there's a series of micro decisions that take place. And let me give you an example. If I send you an email, you have to do what first? You have to open the email. Then you perhaps have to read the email. Then you have to click on the email. That takes you to a landing page. On the landing page is a series of different micro decisions that you must make as you navigate the content, the headline, the video, the images, the copy, the call to action. Maybe that call to action inspires you to give a gift, and then you click to some sort of donation process. And even as you navigate each of these individual fields you must fill out in the process, there are micro decisions that are taking place, many of which are happening on an unconscious level. So then the question is, that I have, it's like, well, what's the force? What's the magic, pixie dust that moves people through these series of micro decisions? And of course, the answer to that is the message. The message is the essence of marketing, and the essence of the message is this idea of the value proposition. Does the perceived value of taking this action outweigh the perceived cost? And we have to think about this not just at a macro level, but at a micro level. So at each of these different decision junctions that takes place in our marketing, my goal as a fundraiser or marketer is to move things from cost-heavy, value-light, to value-heavy, cost-light, right? That is all that we do in all of our marketing. We're trying to get people just to continue to say yes and yes and yes and yes, and hopefully they get to that ultimate yes, and they give a very generous donation to our organization. So let me just kind of orient you real quickly how we actually use this methodology on a page. When somebody comes to your website, they come to a page, there's a series of micro yes. It begins with the headline. The goal of the headline is to arrest attention and get people to read that first paragraph. That first paragraph has to introduce your value proposition. The body copy must then support and enhance that value proposition and lead to a relevant, compelling, concise call to action of what we want them to do. And then that needs to naturally flow into an opportunity to respond on the same page that inspires the gift. So if you think about your donation page in the context of these different micro yeses, then it makes sense to create a page that looks like this, doesn't it? The headline, arrest attention, introduces the value proposition. Body copy, it provides the reasons why people should give, which is the essence of the value proposition. It's answering a single question. Why should I give to you rather than some other organization or not at all? That's the question we must anticipate, we must answer with every single page that we put before our donors. We have embedded quotes you'll see on this page here. Those bolster the credibility of our claims because we don't want to do our own bragging. Let's let somebody else do that for us. And it naturally transitions. This page naturally moves people into a relevant call to action. And right there on the same page that inspires the gift, we can get people to respond. And we introduce that at the proper point in the thought sequence. Now, here's what's interesting. In this experiment, I told you earlier that it generated a 74% increase in conversion rate. What I left out earlier is that it also generated a 189% increase in average gift, and those two factors combined for a 274% increase in revenue, which was transformational for this organization. It was transformational. And what we didn't anticipate is the power of the value proposition and its effect on average gift. And if you think about it, being a nonprofit gives us a tremendous advantage over our for-profit organizations, because we don't have a price, folks, right? Our price is determined by our customer. Our donors decide how much they're going to give. And one of the things that we've discovered from our research is the primary factor that affects that average gift is the value proposition, how much people grasp how their gift makes an impact. So let's look at a couple other quick experiments, and then we're going to get right into live optimization. And this first one is, how does copy on your donation page affect the force of value proposition? I showed you this case study very quickly earlier, and when we first looked at this page, we found that there's an absolute, just fundamental flaw in this donation page. This is the primary donation page for a political campaign, and if you look at it, you may not pick up on it right away. But if I click on the donate button and I get to this page, what if I'm not adequately convinced that it's the right decision to make to give a gift? What am I going to use on this page to make my decision? I mean, all I really have is a picture of the senator in his cowboy boots, which is probably proper for a Texas senator, leaning up against a fence post. Well, and this is where the value proposition becomes so critical, because this is the question. This is the question that every single one of your donors is asking themselves, and oftentimes it's on an unconscious level. If I'm your ideal donor, why should I give to you rather than some other organization or not at all? That is the question we must anticipate, and we must use our landing pages to answer. And so the very simple changes we made to the page, we introduced a value proposition. We put copy on the page, and the copy introduces these different claims of value, and we bolster those claims of value with evidential, which are like facts that prove that these claims can be trusted and can be true. And you can see the control and the treatment side by side. We didn't make radical changes, folks. We just put some copy on the page. That's easy, right? That's easy to do. Well, those little changes in an A/B split test produced a 258% increase in donations, which leads to a very critical principle, that there's a danger in assuming that your potential donor firmly grasps your organization's value proposition by simply using copy to help people understand value. We can lead to these breakthroughs in conversion. Another perfect example of this, another organization, same thing. This is a historical organization. They have a value proposition on this page, but they have a lot of distracting confusion. I mean, there's different giving levels, but I have to know what the difference is between friend, institution, contributor, sponsor. If I don't know, I have to hit the green button and keep going back and forth. They've got the page is out of sequence. The real value is packed into this last paragraph, but it's buried below the call to action. So, and this happens many, many times. So we simply said, look, let's create the ugliest landing page you've ever seen. Let's use a lot of copy to help people really understand the value proposition. Let's put the giving phone at the very end of that experience. And in our A/B split test, version B, the treatment produced a 146.5% increase in donations. And one more quick example here, and this is just a simple headline test. In a donation, really just kind of a donation landing page, we just did a simple headline test. The control version, the headline says maximize with our match. Now, if you know what that means, maybe you find value in it, but one of the things that we've discovered is that clarity trumps persuasion. We don't need to sell. We don't need to be real cutesy. We don't have to write like great ad copy. All we have to do is clearly communicate to the donor the value proposition. So we changed the headline from maximize with our match to make a tribute gift and we'll double your gift. Make a tribute and we'll double your gift. Very, very simple. And in our A/B split test, the treatment produced a 36.7% increase in donations just by changing the headline. That's it. Nothing else changed. Okay, so we're ready to get into live optimization. I know I'm a little bit over on my time here, but we still have plenty of time to do live op. But before we get started, I've got a couple just general rules. The first one is that this doesn't work unless you participate, okay? We have a number of people on the line today, so we're going to moderate all these things, but we want you to share your ideas of how we can optimize each of these different pages, okay? There's no dumb ideas. There's only testable hypotheses. And so we want you to share as many ideas as you have. There's no limit to the number of ideas you can share. And I want you to think about this. You may hold the key to somebody else's breakthrough on the phone, so don't hold back. So don't hold back today, okay? So what I want you to do is you're going to use this little question box in the upper left-hand corner. We mentioned this earlier today, and you can just enter your ideas of how you can optimize this page. You know, you can say things like, hey, what about like getting rid of some of the form fields, or what about changing the headline, or what about any of the things you saw today, or anything else that comes to mind as the ways that we can optimize the page. And make sure to hit the send button or else they don't come through to us. And Jeff's going to moderate the session. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things back over to Jeff. Jeff, go ahead and you can take over control, and we'll go ahead and move into the live op session.
Thanks, Tim. There may be just a slight lag here while I start sharing my screen. Just one moment. I'm going to pull up some pages. We've had some folks submit landing pages to us. We're always excited when people are, willing to be brave, I suppose, and set their pages out there. So we've had a couple folks submit. Thank you for the people who did. And we are, I'm pulling these up right now. There we go. So I'm going to pull these onto the screen one at a time, and we've done short links so you can go see these. You want to open these in the new tab so you don't leave the meeting. But we want to allow you a place where you can actually see the page and click around in your own. So if you, the first one up are our friends from up north in Nature Canada. You can go to nextafter.com/nature and visit this page in the new tab. And then I'm going to pull up the page itself right here. So I want to kind of approach this from initial perspectives. And, this is always, as we always like to say, this is kind of like talking about someone's baby, right? So, this is just, we're trying to put ourselves in the mind of the donor and approach this from an informed perspective about optimization and ask ourselves some questions. So I wanted to point out that the first things that I see here are the headline up here at the top. By the way, while I'm talking, I would love to get your perspectives and your thoughts on this. So please use the Q&A and let me know what you think. What ideas for optimization do you have on this page? We've already gotten one, and they were thinking the same thing I was, which is this top menu right here provides people a whole lot of ways to get out of this page. Really, there's more information, but what we want people to do when they come to the donate page is give. They've got a whole lot of sharing links up here. They've also got this sort of circular reference back to the donate page and some other links of what they can do here. Here I'm going to read some some comments I'm getting from people here. So this is interesting. Someone just pointed this out, and this is a great concept. This first image here says, "Nature's voice will be heard. Speak up at the Trans Mountain Pipeline hearings." Well, that may be important and it may be good. It's actually not clickable, and it's not an actionable step to take. But this is the donate page, so people who are coming here have already expressed some amount of interest. Oftentimes we assume that they've made up their mind, and that may not be true. But the first big image they see that takes up most of the screen here is that we're asking them to do something else, speak up at this pipeline hearing. So scrolling down just a bit, we've got some more people talking here. They said, that's right, the image takes up a lot of space and doesn't provide a lot of value. One person said, if the object of the page is to drive donations, then get involved might be removed, and we could do that as a follow-up call to action. A lot of questions about this copy here. Is this too much copy? This is actually a very specific, here's something one person said, this is a very specific call to action. So someone is coming to donate to Nature Canada, and we're basically giving them a single thing, this pipeline expansion that we're trying to get them to act on. Well, Nature Canada is one of the largest nature conservation organizations in Canada, and so there could be a lot of different reasons that people come to this page to give. So we may not want to provide just one call to action. Scrolling down here to the form itself, this is actually good. I mean, this is value proposition copy. We can't assume that people who come to this page are ready to give right then. We must persuade them all the way up to the point of decision. Tim, what do you think of this donation form here?
Well, I'd say that, first of all, I like that it's condensed. It doesn't have the vertically aligned fields, which is something we've tested over and over again many times, and we've found that when we actually create the perception that less information is required, the better. So I think that that's actually very helpful. The giving form itself, I think that there's probably the opportunity to use maybe big buttons as opposed to little tiny radio buttons. It might be helpful if there's some sort of anchor in my mind, distinction between what's the difference between a $25 gift, a $40 gift, a $75 or a $100 gift. So some sort of kind of gift handle, or being able for me personally to connect my gift to some sort of impact might be helpful. I like that there's a little secure thing there. I'd probably do some more with some sealed banners or buttons, little things down there right by the. One of the things we found is that proximity can provide a very powerful strategy when it comes to overcoming friction or anxiety. And the greatest moment of anxiety on this page is when somebody's actually entering in their payment information. Is it secure? How can I trust it? Is it hacker-proof? All those kind of seals can be generated and put right there next to the giving form and actually eradicate or at least overcome some of those different kinds of anxiety elements.
Yeah, that's really good. We've had tons of great suggestions on this. It's really cool to see the optimization community on this broadcast chipping in. People asked where will the money go? What is the money going to do? They've also suggested possibly attaching gift handles to these amounts as well. So Jody from Nature Canada, thank you so much for submitting this. We'll follow up with you after this broadcast to help you set up a test, and hopefully we'll be able to reveal some test results in a future live broadcast. All right, I'm going to switch and bring on our next willing subject. Here we go. You can visit.
While we're doing that, can I just say something? I mean, it takes a tremendous amount of vulnerability to submit your page and allow us to just pick it apart. So everybody who has submitted their pages are brave people, and you have to be brave when you get into the optimization business, because you have to be willing to test, put your marketing intuition on the line and say, hey, I might not know the best way to do this, and I'm willing to test my way into the very best way.
All right. Next one up, Wycliffe Bible Translators. Wycliffe, their mission is to translate and deliver the Bible to every person around the world so they can read it in their own language. You can see their donation page, the specific summer campaign one we're using at nextafter.com/Wycliffe. So again, use the Q&A box to give us your thoughts on how this specific page can be optimized. Again, at the top of the page, I see a whole lot of big imagery here. There's a video. This is all, we talk about above the fold, landing pages, they're not printed on paper. There's not a technical fold, but there is, has proven to show in previous tests that allowing people to see where you're trying to lead them down the page can help. Also, this does have a header here with a lot of different links, a lot of ways to get out of this page. I'm reading some thoughts from the community. A great, reduce the navigation is a great one. Someone said, where do you donate? There's too many pictures and there's not a clear path as to where to go. There's a lot of stuff below the donate button. When you scroll down, there's all of these links down here as well. And if we're, trying to get people to take one action, the donate form here, while it's just a open field, we've seen that actually be effective, especially with or files that have a large average gift, but it's actually kind of hard to spot where you donate. Several people have mentioned that. The value proposition here, there's a lot of it. This is it's a story about Fabian, and you have the opportunity to make a big difference. Someone called out that was a good motivator there. The real question, there's a lot of distracting aspects on this page. I think a lot of people have said it's very image heavy, and there's too many distracting aspects. There should be a more direct line to the giving form. One person just pointed out the rest of the donation form is not on this page, so that as soon as you type something in here, you're going to have to move forward. That was a really great comment. Another comment on the amount of bailout opportunities right here. A video can be this is something that should be tested. Video, someone pointed out, can be a great motivator, but can also be a great distractor because people come and you have an intended action and they end up watching the video or doing other things instead. Tim, you noted something about embedded quotes from other donors. You want to expound on that?
So one of the things that we have found is very powerful is when we let other people do our bragging for us. We never want to come across as being all braggy. I mean, how annoying is that when you go to an organization's website and all they do is talk about how great they are and how awesome they are and how wonderful they are? And it kind of gets nauseating to a point. So one suggestion might be to have embedded quotes from other donors or other third-party credible people with their little pictures, little kind of block quotes or things, and maybe put those things in the margins, the right and the left side of the screen. Every time we kind of make a claim, you can have somebody else do that for you, and that bolsters the credibility of it. And we actually don't have to do our own bragging. So that's one thought there.
I've also got a couple people who have commented on this follow-up page. This is a checkout page, which is a little transactional. There's also, you're asking people to log in here at the top of the screen. This apparently is someone pointed out that this is a code. This looks like a 0615. That doesn't mean anything to me, the donor. There may be a way to make that internal. You're asking people to make their gift anonymous before they even really start filling out this form, which is quite long. There's a lot of form fields. And then the call to action on the button, someone just pointed out, is process gift. That doesn't exactly motivate me to do that. So there's some optimization there's optimization opportunities on this page. And thank you, George, for submitting this page. And we'll reach out to you after this broadcast to help you set up a test and find some ways to increase conversion on this page. All right. Next up, Christine from Canadian Nurses Foundation. Canadian Nurses Foundation helps advance nursing research and improve healthcare delivery in Canada. You can visit this page that we're about to look at by going to nextchapter.com/CNF, as you can see on your screen right now. And we will pull up the Canadian Nurses Foundation. So this is where you're directed when you click the donate page. It's coming up. Actually, I had the wrong page set up there. I want to talk real quick. Go ahead if you're already seeing this page. Go ahead and enter some comments. We actually got hundreds of comments on here, Tim. This is really, really cool seeing people chip in. So this is the correct page. When you click donate, you go to this how you can help. This is the first thing that I see here, other people are pointing this out as well, there are a lot of navigation options. There doesn't seem to be a donate form on this page. So I've clicked donate, but I don't have the opportunity to donate. There's a secondary donation call over here, someone just pointed out, that actually takes you to the place that you can give. We'll get to that in just a second. Other people are pointing out there are some long load times on this page. We didn't see that. And the copy here, there's motivational copy that we've seen be very, very effective, that can clarify the value proposition and communicate value. This doesn't seem to be necessarily that copy. There's a blurb here someone just pointed out about Margaret Sorry. I'm not sure who that is, but there's a story being told here, but it's a little disconnected from the actual donation opportunity. The first ask someone just pointed out is to become a monthly donor. That may be a little bit hard to bite off. Really the call to action, that's kind of in question here. What is it? Is it become a monthly donor? Is it there's these other ways you can donate, which is a general donation, in memory or in honor. We talk about decision friction. Tim, you mentioned that, and this is a lot of decisions to make up front. Tim, you pointed out there may be separate conversion paths for each of these different ways to give. Expound on that a little bit.
Well, as I was looking at the page here, there are many other ways you can donate, which is down here. We've got general donation, in memory, in honor, invest in nurses, see the difference in healthcare. So this is a challenge, right? We have multiple different ways that people can contribute financially to our organization. But when people come to the main donation page for the first time, we want to be really focused on communicating value. And that's the thing that I'm not seeing here. I'm seeing a lot of instructional copy of how to give, and I'm not getting specific answers to my question of why should I give? Why should I give? And that's the essence of the value proposition. Most of us give because of our personal connection to the cause, and then we rationalize it with the different kinds of evidentials that are placed before us as we kind of go through that decision process. But each of these other different ways to give, maybe they could be moved out of the primary iPath and could be part of some other type of campaign or even some other type of giving sequence that happens from other content areas of the website.
Yeah, there's actually a really great comment here from someone who's watching right now. They said, you talked about conversion paths. So if you click this donate button, it actually pulls up. You can make a general donation. And this may be a technology issue, but there's not actually the opportunity to make a monthly gift down this path. So they're actually split paths. And, there's some interesting things happening here with this pop-up that asks you if you're personal or you're an organization. And not that any of that information is bad, but we have to ask ourselves, is the order that we're asking for these prompts from our donors in the right thought sequence to help move them down the path to make a donation and help motivate them and clarify our value proposition. Again, when we get here to the page, this may have some form fields that can be optimized. There's a lot of questions we're asking before they even made the gift, before they've actually even decided how much they want to give.
Jeff,
and then
if I may?
Yes.
Just interject real quickly because I know we need to keep moving. We're very quickly running out of time. But on this page, there's all friction. There's no value on the page. Once you click off of that primary page, but there wasn't a really strong value proposition that I could discern on that initial page. But once you get here, it's all cost, no value. So one of the things I want all of us to think about is how can we combine our form, our giving form, with our content page that answers the why question? How can we connect the why with the how? And I think one of the things that we've found through testing over and over and over again, this simple strategy of proximity, moving the donation form closer to the content that inspires the gift, will create a huge opportunity for you. And if that's a technology issue for you, let us know because there are technology solutions that will enable you to do just that. So let's go ahead and keep moving, Jeff.
All right, next up is another friend from up north, blood.ca, the Canadian Blood Services. You can visit their page by going to nextafter.com/blood. and we will go ahead and pull up the donation page here. So this is the page. We see Donate Now. Thank you for helping us build a better blood system for Canadians. Go ahead and use the question and answer box to send us your thoughts on this page. Tim, the first thing that pops out to me the first thing I see as I scroll down the page, besides this top nav, is a lot of different ways to give. So that suggests to me that I may not be in the right place. It causes me some decision friction as I start to consider all these various options to give when I've clicked Donate Now to go ahead and make a gift. One thing that we might want to test is moving this entire section over so that it's directly in the iPass, and then finding another way to integrate ways to give on the page. We see, a lot of people have pointed out, they said Donate Now is a command, not a headline, and that there's not a whole lot of value proposition on this page. Peter said, "Where's the value proposition?" So that's an interesting thing that people have identified here. Someone pointed out that these giving buttons actually have no pre-selected amount, and that pre-selecting one of them could actually suggest an amount to a donor. And someone else actually pointed out that they're not really sure what these amounts mean. They're somewhat ambiguous: $125, $75, and $35. Those aren't your usual round amounts, which makes the donor possibly think that they're attached to a handle, even though there's no reason given. We also had another user point out, another optimizer here, point out that the designation can stop people dead in their tracks. Tim, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, a gift designation is an organizational-centric invention. It is not a donor-centric invention. What happens is we want to make sure that our funds get applied to the right codes on the back end. And so we put this question before our donors, and oftentimes they have to make a choice where they cannot understand the distinction between one fund code and the next fund code. And that leads to confusion and oftentimes leads to abandonment. So one simple thing that we have been, just promoting is this idea of offload that after the gift is completed. Let somebody go through, they make their gift, and then after the gift, they can personalize or customize their gift by directing where they want that to go, which fund code. So I know we're running out of time, Jeff, so let me just kind of go through 5 or 6 things that can happen on this page to optimize it and get these people to maximum lift. Change the headline. Donate Now is a command. It's not as somebody said, it's a command. It's not a headline. The headline needs to attract or introduce people into this value proposition, get them to read the first paragraph. The first paragraph is just a sentence right now. It says, "Thank you for helping us build a better blood system for Canadians. Why should I help build a better blood system for Canadians?" Answer that question with your value proposition. Change these little radio buttons to actually big square buttons that are easier for people to click. Have a pre-selected donation amount. Get rid of the gift designation form. Get rid of this additional information. All that stuff can be offloaded to after the transaction. Get rid of this, what prompted you to support us today? Ask that after the transaction. Group these form fields like we showed in that test with CaringBridge and put them horizontally aligned to compress the amount of perceived friction that exists on the page, and move the tribute information, the matching gift stuff, all to after the transaction. So I think there's a ton of friction mitigation that can happen on this page to optimize it. A great suggestion from whoever said it about this ways to give. There's a whole laundry list of things that actually maybe introduces more questions than it provides answers. So I would move that to somewhere out of the primary iPass as well. So hopefully that's helpful. And Jeff, we maybe have time for 1 or two more quick ones because I think we're coming right up on the top of the hour.
Yeah, we are. We'll do one more really quick. You can visit this one, nextafter.com/homeschool. Thank you, Tracy, for submitting your page. Again, we just got a couple minutes left, so let's roll through this one. So here's an interesting page. Use the Q&A field if you see. We've already had someone point out that there's a lot going on here. There's a side navigation bar. There are 2 top navigation bars. And then nestled in all of that content, this is a great comment. It says there's conflicting calls to action as well. Did you know you can donate stuff? Your cars and things can make a difference, cell phones and jewelry. That's great, but people are here to make a donation. So maybe calling this out, your eye is attracted here. Again, the same similar thing like you saw before on the Canadian Blood Services. Someone just pointed out that the fund choices are confusing. there are a lot of different funds here, and unless I'm really tied into one of these, I'm not really sure what's happening. And someone pointed out that the header is extremely large and pushes all this content down the page. Tim, any thoughts on this donation form right now?
Yeah, real quickly. I mean, all those suggestions are great. Get rid of all the distractions. There's tons of distractions on this page. Make it singularly focused. Once we get people to the donation pages, we want to put blinders on them, and we want to lead them down the path of righteousness that leads to giving. That means getting rid of all the distractions and all of the unsupervised thinking that can take place on the page. So great suggestion on getting rid of the distractions. There's a lot of unanticipated questions that show up, from the gift array. We could do the same thing of grouping the form fields together. Is title necessary? I don't know. You can maybe think about getting rid of that and suffix as well. There's no real value proposition. It just says, give to this organization. We're a 501c3 organization. That's all that it says. So my primary value proposition is just to get a tax donation. Well, I can get a tax donation from any organization. Why should I give it to you? What makes you special? What makes you unique? Why, what is your only factor? Why is the Homeschool Foundation, worthy of my donation? If we can answer those questions, folks, we're going to anticipate that primary motivation that all of these donors are wrestling with, which is why should I give it to you rather than somebody else? And I think, Jeff, we're probably over time, so we'll have to, I'm sorry we can't get to everybody's page today, but we, hopefully we have given people some things that they can think about with their landing pages. We'd love to follow up with everybody that has submitted a page and work with them to create a treatment that they can test. And maybe what we could do is have those folks come back and share what they learned from their experiments, of doing some A/B split testing. So I don't know if that's, something we could do, but Jeff, I think that'd be a great thing to do in a future web broadcast.
Yeah, I did reach out to a few folks and who submitted their pages. So if I reached out to you, we will follow up with you via email. Thank you guys all for attending, and especially thank you to those who submitted their pages for live review. We really appreciate that. Like I said, we will send out a recording of this broadcast along with links to the case studies and the PowerPoint a little later on today or early tomorrow. I'm going to hit end meeting here in just a moment, and you'll be sent to a page where you can register for our upcoming broadcast reviewing more fundraising research on June 25th. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the day, and here's to your optimization efforts.